Hello and welcome back to the Metropole Grid. My name is Andre.
And I'm Patrick.
Pat, thanks so much for joining me. We are getting close to the Canadian National Champion title. This is the lower bracket finals.
Yes, we are fighting to see who will be crowned ruler of Montreal for henceforth.
So from 39 players, we got down to 8. We're now left with only 3 players, but both of these players have taken one loss so far in their journey in the top cut, which means whoever wins this match will have a chance to do the run back against right now Chromatically sitting comfortably undefeated in the top cut.
Yeah, we're waiting to see who gets to fight Chromatically.
Yeah.
Both
these players are Canadian players. We've actually seen them on the series before. On the left, this is our last Montrealer. This is Saru, decked up in the Torsog City Grid shirt, playing an Azmari list. And we've seen this before. I think this was the second game in the series on the channel so far. And this list, very notably, is hyper Glacier.
Yes. It is aggressively Glacier. It's full of the border controls, the Hydras, all the nasty NBN ice, such as border control, which I mentioned.
So Azmari, very interestingly, is one of the 40 card minimum decks, which means you can play 44 cards and you're only required to play 18 points of agendas, which means you get this nightmarish agenda suite, which is only 6 3-pointers.
Nightmarish is right.
Yes.
I don't like it.
I know, me neither.
I wish someone would make a video about how bad that is.
So the problem with this is if Hoshiko, this is Kyle, mind you, from the Torsog area playing Hoshiko on the right. If he wants to steal 7 points, he has to steal literally half the agendas in the deck. Three out of the 6 agendas. And 6 agendas and 44 cards, that's 1 in every 7.3 is an agenda per card. So that means that the accesses, like you have to have really well-timed accesses. And it's not about getting lucky on singles. It's more about understanding the like sort of macro flow of where are the agendas at this point in the game.
And as a counter, Azmari is running Echo Chamber.
Yeah.
So Julien does not have to score 3 agendas. Julien has to score 2 agendas and then hopefully a single Echo Chamber, which is like a fake 1 point to close the game.
It's an asset. It's expensive to fire, but again, you fire it once, maybe you win the game. It's only 1 to trash, so that's also very important. Now, we've seen a lot of Hoshiko to date. Again, this is in the 2308 ban list. So before DreamNet got banned out, and you were joking before recording this list is actually only on 1 DreamNet. Not a big change.
No, not a huge change. This could still very well be a dominant deck later on.
Yeah. So
we do like to joke a lot before the stream.
Hoshiko, this again, we talked about this. We've seen Hoshiko be super flexible. And I think that's a big thing about Hoshiko is that you have the ability to be Hoshiko to run aggressively with DreamNet, with Leech, get your value, pushing yourself forward. But you also have all those tools inherently in faction. Things like Liberate Counts, things like Hippo, things like Fermenter. They allow you to play that sort of like late game economy, the late game Glacier, while still pushing yourself forward. And very importantly, we're on Twinning, we're on Wake Implant. So we have ways to threaten multi-axis without expending resources. So even if Julien thinks he has to border control an important run on R&D, you haven't lost much besides credits.
Exactly. Hoshiko is spending their influence on cool, interesting things.
Yeah.
Oh, this is Julien saying events are what Azmari is calling. Every time, or the first time each turn, the runner plays an event, Julien will get 2 credits.
Yes. And again, open deck list, so we have an idea, not that event is not commonly played. Smashing a remote server, that's an FFG res magnet. So just a hard end the run here. There's no way to get through this besides finding your 2 Unity or finding your Banhar, and off the type, we're going to see a Tithe. Yeah. Just annoying enough. Just annoying. Again, 2 credits for Carmen if you can let the subs fire.
3 pieces of Scott Uminga art on the screen at once there.
Pretty good. There's the Banhar. So Magnet going to be threatened out, and we're going to get that Hoshiko flip. So early remote server, you're looking for 2 things. Rashid is one of them. The other one, and we saw this absolutely pop off, if you cannot contest an early daily quest, the economy just runs
really
out
ramps
of control.
Up. It's crazy.
And this deck is going to spend a lot. Again, the average res cost for Nice in this deck, I think it's about 7. There's like 3 Toll Booth. There's 3 Hydra.
Hydra's is 10.
I think it's the most expensive ice right now in Standard, tied with Tier.
Oh, yeah. Bring back Janice, huh?
Yeah, one day. From accounting. Your digital life is also in hand too. I think we're going to get a bit of a rewind here because I think the ordering here is probably incorrect. I think he notices here your digital life scales based off of cards in hand. It should be your first click.
You don't want to do it in your last click after you've played a few cards.
Now this list, I believe Rotom Appliance played at EMEA Continentals, and I think the big change that Isaru put in, and I like it a lot, is trading the hedge funds for this card.
Yeah, it's just a better econ card in so many different situations.
It can be worse.
And it can be played from way cheaper too.
Yes, but it can be played from lower totals, which can matter. So
yes, but there's so many cards in NBN that just so easily draw you 1 or 2 extra cards, making it pretty valuable.
So there's the quest. Again, event being the call. And you're going to see a lot of the runner players here. They're going to hoard their events. So they're going to wait for a turn where they can play 2 or 3 events.
Yes, because Azmari's effect only triggers on the first time each turn. So you're going to want to do 3 or 4 in a go.
After Rashida, you have some incentive to consider running HQ. Again, the agendas here, we're looking at Send a Message, we're looking at Bologna, so still kind of difficult to steal on certain board states. But just getting a Liberated counts down, again, that's a good money, and it looks like the daily quest is going to go uncontested. It was so important that Julien there found an ice. Otherwise, for 1 net damage, you're definitely taking down that daily quest.
Absolutely.
And that's 3 credits a turn. So much of this early game is just putting up ice appropriately, playing around very smart positioning. Again, Glacier, this sort of like Glacier deck, you can kind of, look at it and think it's really simple, but so much of this is understanding if you have a scoring window. But I think one of the big skill testing things is understanding ice positioning. You have to play around Hippo. At the same time, you're trying to play around Banhar. And those kind of work in the same camp, but also in an interestingly different camp. Because a lot of times against Hippo, you'll have your nice ice behind some like chump ice you don't res. But if you don't res your chump ice, then the Banhar connects with your good ice.
Right.
It's really ugly.
But some of the good ice is the one that has many subs, and that's when Banhar is the least useful.
It's mixed, right?
It's mixed, yeah. I see what you mean.
Because like spending 7 for Hydra or spending 3 cards, you could argue one of them is a bit better.
Yeah.
And Soul Advance and Remote Server looks like an NGO front. Unity from hand, Cleaver from hand as well. Just smashing them on the table, getting them out. So now we can actually contest that daily quest. And we won't threaten to lose those from hand again. The breakers generally don't come back. There's 1 labor rights, but you're going to pay 2 to get through Magnet. Border control's only 1 credit. That, I think, we were 1 credit shorter Hydra, mind you, with the NGO front. We're sitting on the table. That could have been a Hydra. So that was the worst case there. We're getting a bit lucky. An early border control. Do you think Julien's going to pop that protected daily quest? I don't think
it's worth it right now.
Gain 2 on daily quest, so you functionally trash that for 1 credit, and we're going to get a flip. Really well-timed early decoder. That is going to have a huge impact on the narrative of this game here.
Yep.
Now you see in the hand,
now you've already got that remote server. Like, you just need 1 big expensive piece of ice, and then that remote server becomes a real problem.
Yes.
So Julien's doing okay.
A big thing here is like figuring out what ice you want in the outermost of there. I think if you can hippo the border control here, you consider in the next couple turns just to get that done.
And we do have 1 install advanced card, probably NGO front.
Definitely NGO.
NGO front is the only non-agenda. But what if it is an agenda?
I know.
Oh my God. Can we see that on the top tables, please?
It does happen from time to time, and we're not seeing it checked here. Again, we don't have really DreamNet, not a big reason. We're gonna go put the Banhar still on that server.
Yeah, we're not making a run, just saying that Banhar is looking at that server.
Yeah, and you're expecting here probably Rashida. An Echo Chamber, you don't want to pay 4 credits this early in the game. You don't have a huge incentive here. It is also worth noting that if this game does go to full time, and this is still a timed round, only the finals is untimed, Julien is the higher seed here. So there's actually more work for Kyle to do. If you get to that 6-6 tie, it counts as a win for the corporation.
True.
Remender coming in, so that's going to be the drip economy.
Okay.
Again, we went through 1 liberated counts down to 7 credits. Not a Rashida in the remote server. At this point in the game, we've drawn through more than 7 cards. You're assuming there's an agenda there. And
okay, regular. Just
such a good stabilizer there.
Yeah.
That
is good amount of money. We're probably just going to gain 9 right away, right?
Yes. Yeah, we're just going to send it. Again, with 6 credits left there, you're a bit interested to contest. It does also flip Hoshiko, which means it's a bit cheaper. It does save you functionally a credit, gives you a card. We're going to see if Kyle wants to contest that, because again, 6 credits is a lot. That is only 1 res worth of ice from 11 to 1, albeit we have to pretend that there's 19 credits there, because NGO front is instant 8.
All right.
Now, Kyle has been joking about how this deck is just Banhar Slam. I think the HQ run here is actually pretty potent. There we see a hand of trashables, that's for sure. Going R&D here. You have to watch out if you do run. Send a message is a free res.
True.
Bologna, you need to pay 5 credits. You don't want to access with fewer than 5.
Yeah, and this Azmari isn't running like Endless Eula, right?
No.
Which of course is kind of hosed by the cards on the table.
Yes.
But with Banhar, that's a kind of a funny.
It really fell at the meta.
Counter.
Yeah, because of Cleaver. Paladin Puemo also coming down, one of those like very, very strong, long late game econ cards. One of the big reasons why the matchup flexibility is here. That is the catch and alt art.
Yes. And another Anarch card that is just good money. just good, consistent money.
This is huge. Attitude adjustment. I think Julien forgets to draw first, which is really funny. It tells you something about board state.
Yeah. Julien's like, well, no, I don't care. This is what I know. I'm going to be shuffling back in my deck anyway. Not even looking at the cards drawn, I think.
Yeah, I know. You're going to get rid of those anyways, I guess. You could have maybe seen a different agenda, but I don't think you want to betray more information.
No, you don't.
If you miss the draw, commit to it.
Yeah.
So this is really big too now, because you're assuming now there's 6 agendas and what's probably about 35, 37 cards in R&D.
Yep.
So now you think HQ is probably a poor value run.
Probably empty.
And R&D is where it's at. So we might see a second ice there because you're assuming, again, all the agendas are in R&D. And this is a big thing.
We're icing up R&D. We're icing up all the centrals.
Going to stay event. I don't think an event has been played to date. Kyle probably has a hand of events waiting to play 2 or 3 in a single turn.
I have to assume.
Yeah. Paladin value. We're going to get that Hoshiko, the Fermenter, getting good money, just going through a deck. We need to find the Carmen sooner than later. Because now face checking into Hydra, they res it for like 5 credits.
Yep.
That's disgusting. It's not the 3 credit Hydra res in R+, which like, that is
oh yeah, that's pretty rough.
Absurd, yeah. Now, this is interesting. Putting this on HQ. Again, HQ doesn't have a huge priority run here. You can just face check into a Hydra for 3 net damage if you want to, but like you're assuming with the attitude adjustment, maybe they top deck an agenda off that ugly draw that was forgotten, but Hippo coming down, maybe you just want to carve a server open.
Sure, yeah, well, let's just dirty laundry HQ. If Julian res it can be hippoed, maybe.
Now with only 4 credits, there's not that much you're actually contesting. I think largely you want to get that Hippo out of hand.
Yes.
Just so you don't lose it.
That's a good point.
That's the first event played in giant toll booth.
That's a toll booth. That's pretty pricey. Too pricey?
Well, you have
with
to.
Banhart.
You have to pay 3 and it's now only 1 net damage.
Yep.
So it's safe to the Hippo, but specifically this run itself is actually, it's like, it's not gonna be a good run. You're assuming all the agendas are at HQ. So this is unfortunately a bit expensive. You did force the corp to res.
I do want to point out something. So I believe Kyle, he paid money with his icebreakers to go below 3.
Yes.
So he wouldn't have to lose all of his money or more of his money.
But that ends the run.
It still ends the run, yes.
So I think he rewound that. You're right. That is a really interesting thing because Toll Booth says pay 3 if able. So if you have fewer than 3, you can duck it. But at this point, he didn't want to be fewer than 3 because he wants to make an access.
Yes.
Again, I'd argue that maybe saving the credits on the access and the net damage. We'll see if we hit a Steel Skin Scarring here.
Yeah.
But this is very interesting. I think we're plotting it out.
We're having some discussions here.
Yeah.
All right.
I think the turn might have been Hippo Dirty Laundry. We just want to make sure we're all on the same page. Again, there is a judge watching. He's a hawk. I've heard great stuff.
Oh, there's a hawk.
Yeah, speaking of Banhart hitting a maw. Okay. This is another big difference between this list specifically and some of the other Anarchs we saw. Maws are console. We're not on Hermes. I think you would actually really appreciate Hermes against a deck with a lot of big agendas.
Yes, but against a deck without a lot of agendas, I'm not sure how useful Hermes really is.
Well, it's huge because
it's more impactful when it hits, but it's less likely to hit, which is a frustrating way to be.
But that being said, now with the Maw, it's hard to get those like incidental cheap runs to get the Maw value. So it might not even hit the table. Maybe we're going to be happy with just 4 MU in this game. We're going to get 5 credits off that Dirty Laundry, mind you.
Okay.
Down to 8, but we have some good economy chugging along in the background. Again, Fermento will be 8 credit play. Technically 2 clicks for 7 next turn.
Yeah. And we're not hippoing that toll booth because of course it wasn't broken.
Yeah.
We just allowed its subroutines to become net damage.
But now Julian here needs to put an ice in front of that toll booth. Just get it. You don't have to res it. You just have to protect it. I don't think you want to put it's a board control.
Yep, exactly.
Just protect it again. You're not going to see huge value runs on HQ if you can control HQ. That's like a really big thing with this deck. With so few agendas, if you can just make sure you're not drawing too heavily, that when you top deck an agenda, we saw this in Julian's former game on the channel, just go straight in the remote server. And that's it. So HQ pressure is more attached to like Hoshiko, maybe a Maw comes down. I think DJ Fenris is not in this list too. So the HQ runs are actually like the Waken Plan is going to be the big target. But again, still we know that all the agendas are still in R&D. Banhart Archives just to maybe force a res, otherwise Hoshiko will pop off. We're going to crack Fermenter for 8.
8 credits, that's pretty great.
Healthy 15. We have that Hippo threat. We want to find the Carmen. There's 2 in the list as well, as much as face checking into Hydra for 3 net damage. That's probably a fair trade. 1 of DreamNet.
Okay.
Coming down. Now the archives run even sweeter when it's a card and a credit, but we're going to res here. Pop-up.
Oh, pop-up window. Well, now everyone's making money. Isn't that great? Well, except that the runner is taking a net damage instead of paying money.
Yes. I think you have to assume there's like a steel skin.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, that's
otherwise.
Cool. Because they do have the decoder out. Like you don't have to actually do that.
But really funny interaction. I think pop-up is so cute here because the money actually in the this matchup is kind of tight.
Yeah.
And it is like the piece of ice that is actually more annoying. Like if it was 1 credit to run archives, you would still consider doing it. But now that you're giving the corp money, it actually is a bit less interesting.
Yes, especially since a lot of the time the corp might be low on credits and it's very risky to give them even 1.
Speaking of low on credits, Cleaver, now we're hippoing through the border control. This force multiplier, now getting it down before you can test the Spin Doctor, you might it's hard to do all the things that you can at once.
Yes.
But going through the Magna now for 2 credits to trash the Regolith for 3, that is going to put Julien off a fair bit of credits. We forced some reses. Again, we're assuming there's 8 more credits on the table with an NGO friend. Nothing else really makes sense.
Yeah, it was expensive, but of course that border control is probably coming back via Spin Doctor.
Yeah. Now that border control, once you get like a big piece of ice on there, it makes you run through a Hydra twice. So you save a lot of money dealing with that border control now. And now Julien has a lot more work to be able to comfortably push into remote server, which encourages like HQ flood. It encourages central servers to get a bit more dense.
And he's still got that 8 credits probably on that NGO front just waiting to go.
Yes. But as soon as you res a Hydra, right, like you can't really score out. Card in the server again, we've seen Rashida's in hand. There's 3 Regoliths in the list as well. It looks like install advance, so you're assuming it's an NGO front.
Yes.
Because there's no agenda in the deck that can be scored out the following turn.
That's right, and there's no seamless or anything like that in the deck.
No tricks.
Yeah.
Just border control, no defensive upgrades, 1 Mavirus, and ice. And just like really good numbers, just like 6 3-pointers. We're chugging through again. We're putting
banners on R&D.
It's where all the agendas are, and you know
That's a good
that.
point.
There's nothing on the table, maybe 1 in hand.
Yeah, well, we know that Julien has drawn a couple of cards, but not enough to make you think that HQ is the better option than R&D right now.
Charging the Spin Doctor there again.
All right, of course we're going to use that Spin Doctor.
You're heavily incentivized.
Bringing back Your Digital Life, maybe, border control.
Yeah, the border control for sure. There's a chance you go for the attitude adjustment just to be able a bit more control, because you do lose this game if you flood up pretty hard.
That's true.
It's like wild. As much as 6 agendas is not a lot of agendas, there are some Azmari games where you just draw 3 in the first like 10 cards, and it's really ugly. Because with just ice, you really need to build a board state to be able to score out.
Yes,
it's not about like, an Anoetic will get me there.
Yeah.
So that could be a problem. So we're going to get those 2 back into the list. 1 Spin Doctor out so far. Again, that run's not successful, so you don't get DreamNet, you don't get Hoshiko accessing.
It was never a run.
It was a run.
I don't think it was a run.
The runner made a run.
Okay, so technically they made a run, or did they?
Double your gamble. Yeah. A nice way again. That's the second time Azmari is fired, so Kyle doing really great to play around that.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, again, you are playing more than 1 event per turn when you can.
Taka, another companion. Again, twinning, we're missing it, but that is 1 credit a turn. That actually does force you to run once every 3 turns at a minimum.
Yeah.
Worst case pop-up window.
Of course, we aren't seeing the best companion yet.
I'm worried that you're talking about Fueno.
Of course I'm talking about Fueno.
Okay, Fueno's not on the list. Fueno's at home.
Let me double check this. Let me do some Foley of me checking a paper.
Fueno's saying more play now with a bit of buy-advance interaction, which is pretty fun. Okay into Bologna, but double advance in their remote server. You might just clear that right now so you can get the daily quest in, but we're going to play a bit slower here. A fair few cards in hand. Just clicking for cards. We're on 6, but you have to assume there's another 16 on the table.
Yes, definitely 16 on the table. Or up to 16.
Again, this matchup is plotting. It's so hard to get those single accesses. Again, we're just going to send it for a single access right now, but it's about finding that twinning. It's
what
about
is? I was about to ask. What is the multi-access?
Yeah,
it's twinning and
Wake.
Wake implant, of course. Yeah, we're seeing that a lot in Hoshiko.
There's not a finality, but Toll Booth on the outermost. 3 credits to loss. Again, 1 net damage to deal with the Toll Booth is a really good trade.
And
another steel skin hit.
That's not the one you want to be hitting with net damage. I don't know what Julien is thinking here.
Now, trading a Toll Booth for the NGO front is okay because that's going to be res, and innermost is the Tithe. We maybe were able to see that coming.
Yep.
Now, this we do not have here at all a killer, so that is going to be a net damage, another.
Yeah.
But
a fairly small tax, and clearly one that Kyle is willing to pay.
Oh, unfortunate hit, though. That's a lot of money on a card in this matchup.
Yeah, I take that back. That was a lot of money.
Single access off the top.
Oh, using DreamNet to get a card and credit, or just a card.
Just a card, yeah. This will flip Magnet off the top. Unfortunate hit here, but this is actually really good for Kyle. Like, I don't know whether you can do the math on R&D whether you're expecting to get a rip there. I think you want to res anyways. There's now a window where you are a bit scared about a hippo coming down.
True.
We'll see if that can be produced. But we're forcing it like 16 credits.
There's the twinning, by the way.
Yeah, it's 16 credits res on central servers. It's going to really slow down Julien. If he's spending so much money on the remotes on the central servers, it's hard for him to get that much money on a remote.
Yep.
Let alone he needs to find a border control. We know one's in the bin, was shuffled back. One's on HQ.
Should that twinning have a counter on it? I feel like there was I
don't think he installed anything
sequencing.
Yet.
Okay.
Yeah, it came off the fermenter, right? No, what did he install? Fermenter. Yeah, he just didn't put a dice on it.
Okay. All right. Then, yeah, we're fine.
NGO front. Up to, 14 credits. So we could put the daily quest in there. Cool. Again, install advance. The Hydra won't even keep you out. You can take 3 net damage if you want to go. So
yeah, easily.
You want a Regolith here.
But maybe you want to grind down the runner. You can put down an asset. Yeah, there we go.
Second ice. That's actually like a really big thing here is like all of the install advances were very obviously NGO front because the credit thresholds were not really good.
Exactly. Junia was at too low credits for it to make sense as agendas.
And that's like a really unfortunate thing about that. The sports day is if you can get the runner to run through all your stuff, spend money, and then it's an NGO front, then it becomes it's like it ascends past being a pretty okay economy card to an absurd tempo swing. And so that's unfortunately a really bad thing here with 2 NGO fronts out. I think there's one more in hand.
Honestly, those are great cards to shuffle back in with the Spin Doctor if you can, because they're just so useful for baiting those runs. And that's how Junia is going to be able to win this.
Now R&D is, you can see 2 cards potentially on R&D here, up to 3 cards actually. And that's only going to cost you 3 credits and 2 cards from hand. That's doable.
Okay, well, we are looking at the remote with Banghar.
Just forcing ice reses. I like this. This is much more aggressive than I think we've seen in some of the other matchups.
Yeah, I like this a lot.
This Azmari, just forcing the credits down. Now, I think in the only other matchup we saw on the camera, the daily quest went for many, many turns. And this sort of aggression without the economy coming in is really good. Moshing.
Okay.
We're going to get a couple cards there. Bones, Cleaver, and Hannah. All cards you're not feeling too sad about leaving.
Hannah is better against a wide deck, against tagging decks. This doesn't look like this is going to be doing any of that.
Yeah.
Except in the Hydra situation.
Yeah, this is, again, very importantly open deck list. So you know there's no fun houses. There's no like tag tricks. There's also no oppo. That's very important. It's just genuinely honest ice.
Making some money with Gamble.
Another event. I think we got it off the moshing, if I'm not mistaken. Rashida. Cracking up. That's what you expect in the remote server. We're flipping back to Hoshiko's side. So now 3 more cards. This is where you're expecting maybe to run HQ. We've drawn through a lot. Yeah. There's actually 2 agendas in hand. On 18 credits, again, it's just about the Carmen. You would still feel pretty comfortable, or not comfortable without a boarding control, but 4 ices. Not uncommon for this deck for the remote.
Yeah. And I see a Bologna in hand. I think I see a send a message is the other agenda there.
So we can push in this remote server we want, install advance. It puts you to 13. You res a Hydra, you're on 3.
Yeah.
That's a problem. So this might, again, be a daily quest for a while, but then HQ comes right. No res. Another big thing here is like, Julien's really good throughout the day of finding an agenda and understanding it's safer behind 4 ice than it is in HQ. And I appreciate that. Like often you see 5/3s as install advance. He will pretty comfortably be like install. I'll worry about advancing later.
Yeah, that's right. I've seen that quite a bit. It is the safer play, and it is kind of a skill issue to look at the board state and realize that's where it's safest, even if I'm not advancing it.
Yeah. Now both our companions at full, so we need to see a run here. We need to see an install. One of those is a bit easier than the other. But if we want to send it, we didn't get a twinning last turn. I think that's a bit of a bummer. You want to get 1 counter a turn because that's your only like ongoing multi-access threat you have in almost nearly the whole deck, because Waking Plan's going to be hard to get value behind a toll booth on the innermost. So we'll see here again. Taka gives you a tag if you don't sate her questing needs. Paladin, you can trash an installed card. I don't think there's any really great targets here. So we'll see where the Banhar gets put down.
Yeah.
Again, hippos.
Well, we haven't seen the Banhar definitely mean a run is happening on that server.
Yeah.
So it could mean like, I'm going to put the Banhar in the server and that's where I'm not going to run because I'm meaning to break something with a hippo.
Yep.
That's also could be.
Well, you can still break it with hippo, right?
True.
As long as you have the breaker, you can still break it. But yeah, no, you're totally right. Also, like where you put Banhar changes in theory, the pressure of where the corporation thinks like, oh, if they run now the remote server, I still have to res now 2 ice to keep them out. So it's interesting. As much as this board state doesn't give Julien that many options of what he can res.
Yeah, for sure.
So see, I think the remote server has to send a message. I think Julien is doing the thing that Julien does. So we might see double advance in a bit.
Right, because the Bologna can protect itself to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Of course, Kyle has a lot of money, but
I think Fermenter for
even
6.
more money.
A lot of money here again. We're going to see install. We're going to see a run. Carmen for 5.
Okay, we have a sentry breaker.
Pretty expensive. It gets a fair bit cheaper though with 3 credits off of the Puemo, but we're not going to get any of that text on it. So now we're breaking. I think it's Hydra for 7.
Okay.
That's not good. You'll take it though. So we might see a big run here again. We're going to see 3 cards. Leech as well.
Leech is going to be pretty helpful with some of these. Like obviously super helpful with Cleaver. And Raindrops Cut Stone on...
We're going in. Toll Booth, we're going to let that fire. We have no reason to break it. We're going to lose 3, take a net damage. Let's see if it's the last steel skin. Just a pintle. Not a huge target in this deck as much as you can use it as for pseudo expose.
Yeah. And then here we're going to pay to break the net damage.
If you don't, you flatline. And now we're going to use the twinning to C3. We have 5 credits, so we can steal Bologna. So this is the first big multi-axis of the game. We're going to get some more
card
money
number
back.
1.
And card draw magnet.
Card number 2.
Rashida trash for 1.
Easy trash,
Pretty
yeah.
easy. Last card, just a toll
Toll
booth.
booth, can't do anything about that. Okay. Judy must be feeling pretty relieved after that.
Yeah, now he did know where a quarter of the agendas are. 1 in hand, 1 in the remote server. Now that leech counter you talked about, I don't actually know if it boosts really well into the cleaver because it's just border control, I think.
Oh, is border control the only...
It might be.
Oh, yeah.
But the big breakpoint is that any single leech token saves you 2 credits on Hydra because it gets it to 5 strength, which means you boost once. It's actually really, really important. There is one Mavirus in the list, but now the big thing here with the multi-axis is Kyle knows he doesn't have to run R&D for the next turn at least. The top card is known after we drew the magnet. So if Julian wants to advance the remote server, he knows R&D will hold for a bit. Whether we see him some aggression on HQ, if you're not rezzing the outermost, the twinning, well, you can't, you actually have to break the toll booth. You only break the toll booth for 2. It's more the on encounter that's a bit more ugly at this point.
Yeah, that's still going to be taxing. That's still going to maybe save a Bologna at some point.
Looks like we're pushing. I think it's an NGO front. Install advanced events again.
Probably an NGO front.
Just using these as raw economy as opposed to baiting in remote server.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It dampens the value of it as much as you just need the raw money here again because there's 4 unres dice on the table.
And we know that they're going to be very expensive.
Yeah, at least 1 Hydra here.
Yes.
Toll booth also is
probably
up.
Cannot res more than 2 ice.
Yeah. It's going to be hard. So we'll see here again. We have a bunch of these little goals that we have. We definitely need to be at least installing a card with Paladin or breaking an ice with Taka because we need to be charging twinning. We didn't talk about, again, the whole suite of Cat Chen arts. That is the twinning.
Yeah, that's gorgeous.
The 2 faces. Drawing through the deck. Another hippo. It's a 3 on the list. You definitely would want to see one sooner than later. Did not call with Banhar, so technically you don't have a Banhar this turn.
Right.
Because it's optional.
It's optional, so it's like you may select a server, but it's only at the start of your turn.
Yes.
You can't draw and then decide where to put it.
This is actually really interesting because we have a pretty in-depth judge call here because there's a chance that Banhar worked like Azmari. Because at least it
stays on the same server it was selected
at? Well, so FFG text for Azmari, I'm not sure if Null Signal Games has updated it, says if the runner plays a card of the last type named this way.
Wow.
So if you forget to name something, it just remembers what you named last turn.
Okay,
which is
clever.
A lot of times why players use these like reminder cards. If you're confused about the Mad Dash, that's just to remind it's an event.
Yeah.
But technically, the text on Banhar is actually significantly different. It says the thing named at the start of the turn.
So Banhar cannot just remain on the same one indefinitely without the runner reminding us that's where
Yes. You have to be explicit to say, I'm leaving Banhar here. You could have an agreement maybe at the top of the game to be like, if I don't move Banhar, I'm going to remain it there.
You can,
I think that might be okay. I'm not exactly sure. But if it's too late here that you've drawn a card, you can't draw a card and then be like, oh, I meant to put Banhar on the HQ, heaven forbid, leave on RD.
Is there an option in JNet to just say Banhar stays on the last thing set? Okay.
No, Janet always asks. And no is an option. No server is technically an option. So that's the option I think we're going to get to.
Cool. All right, still on R&D. Well,
no, we're going to pull it off.
Never mind.
But that's where it was for sure. So we're just take a second again. Man, I had to check on my phone.
This judge is brutal.
So no Banhar this turn. I don't think it's that big of a deal. It saves you 2 credits on the toll booth. Again, I think ideally you're finding a hippo this turn and punishing the remote server. The event calls, we've stacked them pretty well. I think it's only been maybe 6, maybe 8 credits off of Azmari. That's still so much money.
It's still a lot. It's still a huge boost. Like a lot of economic IDs aim to get 8 credits over the course of a game. And
there's a pinhole and we're going to run R&D here. So maybe, we're running archives.
Okay.
So it's a pop-up window. We're going to go through. Going to break it. Again, we just want to get that twin encounter.
Yeah, we're breaking with Taka so we can get a twin encounter. That's the idea.
Then we 1 credit. This is actually fascinating.
We're giving Julia 3 more credits total from this action.
I love this play. Julian should pop the NGO front. You're technically allowed to access the NGO front to trash 8 credits, but that might be like this double bluff that something in this server is more important. So what are you going to do to access my NGO front and finding out to send a message at the cost of not trashing an NGO?
That's pretty good.
It's such a wild play.
So the NGO front ended up still being a bluff.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So cool. We're going to get the leech counter, mind you. That was a run. We did access, so Hoshiko's going to continue trekking on. DreamNet fired.
That's
but
great.
now we know that there's points in the remote server. We also are pretty sure that's an NGO front.
Yep.
As much as that could have been trashed for 1 credit, denying 8, which on this board state is pretty significant. Again, Hydra does go for 10. We're just going to click for credits here. We did lose Liberated. We now know there's a toll booth and a magnet in hand.
Yep.
Top of R&D is fresh. Double advance.
Double advance, yeah, of course, because now it's now or never.
We got to move it. I don't know where they're going to see another ice there.
There's so much ice there. double checking what all that is in case we're going to over install something at this point.
Yeah. So like
But at 17 credits, we can maybe res 2.5 pieces of ice. And so.
Yeah, it's 25 though, right? Because we have the NGO. So
right.
You might be able to res all of it.
That's true. Yeah.
The thing is, like, you're actually happy for them to res all of it because the send a message is functionally blank.
Of course. Yeah. That's a good point. That's how you play around send a message. But we haven't seen any hydras yet. We're just sure there are some hydras out there.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we know there's a toll booth in hand. So if something comes down, magnet or toll booth at 50-50, maybe you could call it.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see again. If you can destroy any amount of ice while installing ice on a server.
Yeah. In order to cheapen the install cost.
Yeah. You could wipe the whole server if you wanted, obviously.
Do it.
Don't do that here, but yeah, do it.
Do it. Come on, I dare you.
So we'll see if we get the outermost here. Again, you have a lot of decision making about what you want the outermost to be because you wanted something that is like reasonable potentially if you need to res on a Banhar, but more importantly, not atrocious if it does get hippoed.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, it is an interesting calculation you have to make here. So maybe it's like a magnet that will protect a Hydra from being hippoed or something like that.
That's exactly where you want to be. And that is going to be an install for 3, double advance, send a message. And this is so important. Again, we are a timed match and we're pretty far into it. So like winning on 6 points is pretty reasonable. So while we may not even see a score to 7, just getting to 3, getting to 6, especially as the player who is at the higher seed, which right now Isaru is, there's a huge incentive just to get to 3 because you require a lot more work. Where Kyle to win has to now steal 2 agendas if you can get the first as the corp. Banhar on their mode server.
It also would have made an early echo chamber make a bit more sense as well. Like that.
Yeah.
And not that you want or expect a game to go to time. It's just
as the higher seed, it's like it's weird because you win on ties. So like getting to 4.
Right. Yes. Right. You win on ties. If Judean were lower seed, and that
it was the lower seed. Yeah. Exactly.
I don't like that would affect play, but I also find it fascinating to think about. Ooh, okay.
Raindrops in the remote server.
Raindrops. We're going to be drawing some cards, I guess.
That should be 2 credits on Azmari, but outermost as the magnet, just as you called. So you take 1 net damage. You're going to replace that card and gain some credits because of the raindrops. There's the 2 credits from the Azmari call.
Yep.
So not feeling too bad. Again, we did see a Liberated Council lose from hand, and that's a card you're pretty happy to get in this matchup.
Yeah, let's see what gets knocked out.
We've seen 2 steel skins, if I'm not mistaken. Twinning, fine.
Sure, yeah. It's unique. It's not going to matter.
Yeah. There's no tag. Well, there is some ice tags, but you're pretty safe with the resources.
This is a Hydra. And I think the alt art that Junie is using is from Last Worlds, which is really beautiful. This like tower of scary Dalek-esque monsters.
There's interaction. Leech to lower it to 5 strength. So Carmen gets through for 5, what you played for a Nancy.
Quite
down
efficient.
to 3 credits, up to 11, but that's going to go very quickly. Let's see another Hydra or that toll booth. No, border control.
Border control is fine here.
That's
actually
good.
Fine here.
Cleaver for 1. Now you know if they pop the border control, you're going to have to run it back. But I think you're excited to get the border control popped.
Yeah.
You need to get this out of there. And there you go.
That's a very good border control pop because the Hydra is so expensive. It's so draining.
Yeah.
So we only draw 1 from the Raindrops Cut Stone and make a bit of money back.
Yeah, that die tracking, that's actually a really nice habit. So you remember the subroutines. So now you have full information what it costs to run the remote server. You can do the math.
Absolutely.
It cost, hold on, 5, 6, and 9. You can run it.
So yeah, it's doable.
You can do it.
And it's not a Bologna, so you know you can steal it.
And you have Taka credits to help, but you know that functionally out of pocket is 5 for the Hydra if you use the twinning, and then 2 for each magnet. No tricks. And that is going to be your 5-3. They're going to get res and ice. Now the ice they can res is limited. It's whatever's on the outermost of HQ. You're not expecting that to be
expensive.
Huge.
Yeah.
I think we know it's a border control, but Kyle doesn't. But you know you can send it here.
He's got to do it. He's got to run. He's done the math because he's better at that than me.
So you're right. Knowing it's not a Bologna makes this so much more interesting.
Yes.
I think if it's a Bologna, you're still okay.
Honestly, that pinhole threading, like, that might have just been to force the NGO front, but he would have checked the card in the server anyway, because you have to know if it's a Bologna or not.
So click for your credit again. You want to keep your money up. You're not worried about Opera research, and I think we might just be sending it back again.
So Banhar's not going to work. You have to spend full money on everything now.
Only first encounter. There we go. We have a leech into the Carmen Hydra, so just 5 credits on a leech. Taka to break, and we're in with 5 credits to spare. Even we could have done a Bologna, but send a message. First 3 points, rezzing a border control.
Okay.
That's interesting. It's like 4 credits really matters in the matchup. Mind you, Hippo last click, love it. We did get the counters back from stealing an agenda. So border control rezzed, betrays information. The thing about this deck is it doesn't have any like really big, it's not like it's going to play a legwork and the border control needs to be a surprise. So you will take it.
Yeah.
But there are board states in which sometimes you should refuse to send a message if you need to play around misinformation. Like you don't res a tithe. The mystery is better than a credit.
I completely agree. But sometimes not rezzing it while you have, looking at your money, there's a lot of different ways to play.
Install double. Again, we have full information what this is. We've seen 2 NGO fronts. Now, Julien could, in theory, score out a Bologna here, which would take him.
We've seen all
up
3,
money.
haven't we? And we haven't seen any shuffled back in.
Oh, you're right. We've seen all 3.
Yeah.
So you know that this worst case is a Bologna. Now, if Julien scores a Bologna, he will technically be up ahead as the higher seed. We are pretty deep into the timing of the match.
And you and I have seen the Echo Chamber in his hand, so that would bring him even further ahead.
But now with the Hippo, this is the big issue, is jamming the remote server means that toll booth is going down. And that means R&D is going to be only a tithe if you want to really send it here.
R&D is going to be pretty easy to get through, and that's going to be pretty scary. And for probably more than one turn.
This was a big fork. Yeah, you're right. If you want to score it out, that R&D is going to be open for 2 turns here. So there is a chance that if this does not get pulled down immediately, Julien can't score out that agenda. He has to get an ice, but we're calling it. 2.
Or are we running that server?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, we're just running to break the magnet to use the Taka to get the 20.
Cool.
Again, Taka, you can use it.
Although,
just to get 20.
Couldn't you have done that during the run on R&D? Or I guess like that's the end of the turn. You're just letting
Oh no! Just to send a message with no trigger. I think he has a Bologna in hand.
I guess the Bologna is safer in hand.
It's safer in hand, but I think you needed the 3 credits. The worst case here is that there's no ice on R&D. You're right, Kyle did not hippo through that toll booth, and he has now even a bigger window here. He's going to see up to 3 cards. The question is, can you get in? Because now seeing 2 send a message, you're a bit more scared of accessing from R&D without 5 credits for Bologna.
Right. Because like now most of the agendas left in R&D are Bolognas.
Yeah.
And you and I know that Julien has 1 Bologna in hand, so there's only 3 agendas left in there.
That's a small deck though. But you're right, it's only 3 agendas.
Is it right? 2 Bolognas and to send the message.
Credit charging again. We're just doing that bounce just to break the unity into the magnet, just to be able to get it. We're hippoing it?
Oh.
Okay, interesting. So this is kind of cool, right? This means that he doesn't want to pressure central servers. He wants to win by destroying the remote server. And he's correct. If this deck doesn't have a remote server, heaven forbid, on 2 credits, it can't do anything. It can't protect a regolith. It cannot score out agendas. It can't protect a daily quest. And then on top of it, if he has a 3rd hippo in hand, that Hydra is coming down.
Yes. You know, in retrospect, I kind of like installing and scoring the send a message. You know what? Sorry, I can't defend that. Let's rewind.
And their attitude adjustment to get the Bologna back into the deck. So you're assuming there's nothing in hand, which does make sense here because Julien needs a breathing window on 2 credits. How quickly he can recover. And we talked about like destroying the remote server being a real thing, but if we go to time again as a higher seed, Saru on the left wins. So Kyle actually has to do work on centrals.
Yep.
So we'll see if that 3rd hippo shows up because it's so important. Having to discard here, attitude adjustment was played for free. You didn't get, you didn't make money off of it.
Kind of wish we had more money right now.
Yeah,
I say we because we're both from Montreal, and so I'm putting all my money on him.
And there is the respect. Even if you go down to 0 credits, you don't need to res it. You just need to have an ice in front of it, so it's not the outermost to worry about that hippo.
Yeah, and who knows? Maybe it's another pop-up window, and then easy res.
Couple cards left in the deck. It seems like a dozen. In terms of things that we're looking for, I think there's 1 more liberated. We'd love to liberate from the deck. That's a lot of money up front. Hoshiko isn't drawing cards. Again, archives, that pop-up window is doing just enough.
Exactly. It's doing exactly as much as it should be.
Labor rights, fun. Nice. Ooh, off the top, trashing a liberated and a Carmen. So this is such a cool card in the mid to late game. That's why he was counting his deck. Because here you can just like absolutely put, you can't put hippos in because they remove themselves from the game. But there you go. You can just dunk liberated back in. And just say like, hey, your deck is only ice. My deck is now mostly 16 credit economy cards.
Yeah.
What are you going to do about it?
3 liberated accounts. I guess that is in the spirit of labor rights. I approve.
So we used to see like max decks back in the day that would empty their deck and then just labor rights back in like economy, labor rights, and then just like hold. And like we're getting back to that point where we're just holding. As much as again, time is sneaking up, and Kyle, if he wants to win this game, needs to find another one of those defensive 3-point agendas, or mostly defensive again, mostly Bolognas. We're charging. Banhar into the toll booth. You're going to pay 3. We're going to go through. We're going to see 3 cards off the top. This is a really big multi-access.
Okay.
Losing them all.
Doesn't really matter.
Totally fine there. Going to get ripped up. It is for the tithe. We're going to get through with the Carmen that charges again.
All right.
It does charge.
So we're going to see multiple cards, and we have enough to steal 1 Bologna.
Yes, and 1 Bologna is enough. 2 Bologna would be too much. Mavirus off the top. Going to purge out the leech.
Okay. Might as well.
Yeah. We're going to trash that. Bologna off the top.
There we go.
For 5.
Now it's 6-3.
And further down to Spin Doctor. You could consider trashing that. We're going to leave it.
We're going to leave it. Okay.
I actually think it's interesting. I think we've seen most of the fermenters. There's actually a big chance, and now you didn't steal the points before that. If you saw the Bologna first, you might actually leave them a virus. Because now Julien, to win, needs to make money and needs to find an agenda and needs to jam it. And the Spin Doctor will obviously accelerate that. But like the Mamiris is a really bad draw here.
Yes. Yeah, I completely agree with that.
But Kyle wants to see deep because he needed to find points, and now he found points. He can now safely be in, I'm just going to run the remote server every turn that you put something in it and advance it twice.
Yeah.
So this is really hard, and we're coming up on time here, mind you. This is the last timed game, potentially. Finals, grand finals even, are not timed. So we're assuming that remote server there is a Spin Doctor.
Oh, all right.
Before, we're going to finally, for the first time, maybe in the whole event, Julian's going to change to resource. This is mostly because we know the
because
deck
we saw the deck is mostly liberated account at this point.
Yeah, it's like a third liberated, which here, again, if the credits are all about running their remote server, paying 6 to get that down. Again, you do get it down a bit cheaper. Oh, actually, Puemo had to show himself out after, show herself out, excuse me.
Such a shame.
Yeah.
But you know what? Well, actually, the liberated accounts kind of want Puemo around, don't they?
Exactly. Yeah, that's a huge economy card. The thing is, like, there's not much else on the table you can afford to trash.
All right, so you're rezzing and popping Spin Doctor.
Yep. The res there also, like, potentially makes HQ worse. It's kind of still a hard server to run with the border control there and the toll booth, but, you know, it's hard to pop the border control.
I feel like we're bringing back at least one NGO front.
YDL2 is a possibility because you're already, if you top deck it, you have like 8 cards in hand. That's a good recovery. Especially after the Spin Doctor res, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, NGO fronts are probably the most interesting thing you can put in the remote server at this point.
100%.
Yeah. So again,
because Kyle has to run them.
Yes. So the game is going to slow down. And Kyle has no huge incentive to run centrals anymore. Okay. So your digital life, going to get some money back into the deck. We'll see what else we go for.
And border control.
That makes sense.
Border control works with the remote server, of course. So
he can't win without a border control.
Right.
It's almost that straightforward. He cannot score in the remote server without a border control. We're just going to click for, I think we just clicked for 4 credits.
Okay.
And genuinely, I think Kyle's on track to be able to do that and smother the game.
Yeah.
Smashing Hoshiko back to the non-digital side. Again, we have removed those labor rights, the hippos from the game. So there's one more hippo you have to worry about. If that Hydra goes down to the hippo, it's a really bad spot. But I think we're like so close. I'm calling like 2-minute warning, 5-minute warning. And Julian knows how much work he has to do. It's for 6 or 7, I think. Just 6 in hand.
Okay.
So I do think he ripped that off the top deck, maybe.
Yeah, probably.
1-minute warning.
So Spin Doctor in hand. There's a Regulus.
Regulus, just make some money real quick.
The one thing you want on the remote server. So now it's, can you find a border control and can you score out? So we understand how much it's going to cost to run the remote server. Again, no defensive upgrades. It's just straight math. And you know every single ice in the deck if you
if your memory if your memory is good enough.
Yeah. We'll discard here again. One you could consider. You can't.
Do you want to risk and lose one of the echo chambers? Is that what you're thinking?
No.
Although it wasn't the end of the turn anyway. So
yeah, I don't think it matters. And there's that respect again. Understanding that the Hydra comes down, so does entirely your hope.
Okay.
So on the remote server, again, Hydra for 3 damage is somewhat fair.
Yep.
A lot of these cards are the cards you're not planning to install anymore. I think the Liberate is the really hot one that you want to be cycling through. So talk on 3, you have to run this turn, but again, time is hugely is an advantage for the runner. I think that might be it. Yeah, handshake. Time is called.
Oh well. Okay.
Understanding that is
so
going to be
the runner
time
takes
called.
it on time.
On Kyle's turn, time is called, but with 1 turn left, there's no way
there's no way that
you
can do
points.
anything.
Yes.
There we go.
Wow, we saw Hyper Glacier. We saw this Azmari deck look so strong and Swiss, and rightfully now having the tools to be able to destroy ice, the Liberates, the Fermenters, the pressure. You saw how Kyle pulled that apart. Like a lot of very important reses, understanding that the late game, like bringing down that magnet with the hippo was the kind of like a very important line, as strange as that is.
Yeah, very interesting line, but it worked out in the end.
So well played.
Behavior.
So that leaves us with our finals there. Julien, huge shout out top of Swiss, the last Montrealer to leave. Really well played.
Yeah.
Saw fantastic games from him throughout the day. But now our last Canadian hope, that is Kyle going now from the lower finals, has to win 2 games in a row against Chromatically.
I don't want to support someone from the Torsaw Grid.
Why not? Kyle's the best.
No, you're right. You're right.
No, Torsaw Grid.
We went up for dinner the night before this, actually.
Yeah. So tune in. We'll be back in just a bit with the finals for Canadian Nationals. We're almost there.
Yeah, can't wait.
Thanks for watching.
Bye, everybody.
Ciao.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Shout out to both those players that put on that game. We saw Asaro for the first time in round 2 in the Swiss games, and his deck looked absolutely insurmountable. It's a narrative that we kind of saw at Worlds, where a lot of the top players are building decks to deal with assets or to deal with net damage or tags, stuff like that. And it takes one player to come in with just the biggest, beefiest ice in the format to really put a roadblock in a lot of those like maybe run-based runners. Now, of course, Hoshiko with Hippo, a bit of a program or a bit with ice destruction can go pretty far. So it's an interesting matchup, and it almost made it all the way to the finals. Shout out to Asaru. And of course, for Kyle, we'll see him in the finals now as a lower seed. He needs to win 2 games in a row, and I think there's a big chance we're going to see a bit more B1001 action. Always excited for that. Of course, a huge thank you to not only all these names here, but all to the Patreon supporters of the Metropole Grid. We are supported by the community, and it takes a lot of time to put these videos together the way that they are. So this just wouldn't be possible without the support from all these names here and more. So thanks so much to these folks and to the Daily Cast patrons. Any contribution is incredibly appreciated. And with that, we're off to the finals. Mine Chromatically has been sitting out for a while, undefeated, playing some of the cleanest Hoshiko we've seen so far. We haven't seen his Asa Group Corp. We might see that coming up, but Kyle has some work to do. We'll see you in a bit.